It wasn't coming from the walls. It wasn't coming from the ceiling. It was rising from the floor, deep within the tower's foundation. Lena's pulse throbbed in her ears as she stepped forward, her boots stirring coils of dust that glimmered in the faint light. Her fingers brushed against the peeling paint of the interior wall, feeling the rough texture beneath the cold dampness that had seeped inside with her. The door behind her remained sealed shut, but she didn't reach for it. She didn't need to. The truth settled over her with unsettling certainty. Even if she tried, she doubted it would open. The tower had closed her in deliberately. Her flashlight beam cut a narrow path through the dark, revealing old radio desks pushed against the far walls. Their surfaces were covered with thick dust, tangled wiring, and relics of forgotten communications. Microphones, headsets, rusted knobs frozen mid-frequency. None of it looked touched since the day the tower had gone silent, yet everything felt wrong. Something had been removed, not destroyed, not abandoned, removed. Spaces where equipment once sat were unnaturally clean, leaving rectangular outlines of absence. Dust patterns didn't lie. Someone had cleared this place methodically, taking what mattered and leaving the shell behind. Lena traced one of the empty outlines with her finger. Cold, perfectly clean, recent. She swallowed. Someone else had been inside this tower long after it was shut down. Someone with access. Someone who knew what to take and what to hide. The mechanical hum beneath the floor deepened, vibrating faintly against the soles of her boots. Not loud, not threatening, but undeniably active. A sound no abandoned building should possess. A sound that didn't belong to decay or time. Her flashlight flicked toward the far corner of the room. There, beneath a cracked layer of linoleum, was a seam in the floor, thin, precise, almost invisible, but she recognized the engineering instantly. A hatch. Not the kind maintenance crews used, not the kind put in place by a county airport office. This was different, industrial, reinforced, built with purpose. She knelt beside it, sweeping dust away with the back of her sleeve. The square outline grew clearer. A recessed handle sat flush against the surface, its edges worn by hands that must have pulled it hundreds of times. She grasped it firmly, expecting resistance. Instead, it lifted with haunting ease. A breath of cold air surged upward, carrying the scent of sealed metal and stale power. The darkness below was thicker than the room above, swallowing her flashlight beam as though refusing illumination. The hum grew louder. She leaned forward. A narrow staircase descended into the depth, steel steps, gray and precise, untouched by corrosion. The air temperature dropped sharply, wrapping her lungs in a cold so deep it felt like she was inhaling shadows. Her fingers tightened around the flashlight. This was level C, the hidden level, the place mentioned in the frantic notes, the access point someone had erased from the official records. She steadied her breath. She had unlocked the tower. Now the tower was inviting her deeper. A thunderclap shook the building overhead, making dust drift from the ceiling in soft little cascades. The storm above had grown violent, raging against the tower walls like a beast denied entry. But down here, everything remained calm, still, listening. Lena took the first step downward. Her foot pressed against the steel, and the entire staircase vibrated subtly, as if acknowledging her presence. She hesitated, hand gripping the rail. It was ice cold, so cold that it numbed her palm almost instantly. The hum beneath her feet deepened. Lena continued downward. Each step took her further from the world above, further from rain, from wind, from sky, into a silence so profound it swallowed her breath. The flashlight beam quivered along the walls. They were smooth, polished metal, nothing like the dilapidated construction upstairs. This wasn't built in the 1960s. It wasn't FAA standard. This was engineered for secrecy. As she reached the final step, her boot touched concrete. The hum surrounded her now. Her light fell across a narrow corridor stretching ahead, perfectly straight, perfectly symmetrical, disappearing into darkness. Dust lay across the floor in a thin, undisturbed line, except for one detail that made her heart stutter. Footprints, not old, not smudged, not faded, clear, sharp, recent, they led forward into the darkness, and they were not hers. Lena froze. Someone had been here, not years ago, not months ago, recently. The hair along her arms prickled. In the silence, her breath echoed faintly off the steel walls like the place was repeating her exhale back to her. She crouched to examine the prints more closely. Boots. Large, deep impressions, a stride that suggested urgency or direction. The prints led deeper into the corridor, vanishing into the dark like a trail left by a ghost that knew exactly where it was going. Her stomach tightened with a pull she recognized, fear tangled with purpose. She lifted her head slowly, her breath forming pale vapor in the cold air. She wasn't alone in this underground level. Someone else had been moving through these corridors. Someone who knew the way. Someone who'd walked these steps long after the airport had been sealed. The hum vibrated the walls again, steady and constant, like a heartbeat buried beneath concrete. Lena stepped forward. One step, then another, following footprints that did not belong to her toward a truth that had waited in the dark long before she ever arrived. And as she moved deeper into the cold corridor, leaving the storm and the surface world behind, Lena realized something with absolute clarity. Unlocking the tower had not opened a path. It had awakened one. The deeper Lena moved into the narrow corridor, the more the darkness seemed to breathe around her. Cold, patient, ancient. The hum beneath the concrete floor was steady now, vibrating up through her boots like a distant engine buried far below. Every footstep she took echoed softly, swallowed almost immediately by the density of the underground air. The footprints ahead of her remained crisp in the dust, a silent reminder that she was not the first person to walk this hidden hall. Only the first in a very long time who wasn't supposed to. Her flashlight beam stretched down the corridor, catching flecks of metal embedded in the smooth walls, small, deliberate, engineered with the same precision she'd seen in the tower wiring. This was no forgotten basement. This was a facility designed with intention, built by hands that understood secrecy. Lena paused, resting her free palm against the wall, cold, smooth, untouched by time. Nothing down here matched the age of the airport above. It felt newer, cleaner, maintained, as though whoever had built this level had cared more about protecting what lay beneath the tower than keeping the runways alive. She continued forward, her breath forming pale clouds in the frigid air. The corridor extended impossibly straight, its symmetry unsettling. Every 10 feet, a thin strip of metal crossed the floor expansion joints designed to handle shifting pressure or temperature changes. Industrial, grade, modern, hidden under a forgotten airfield where they didn't remotely belong. Her beam caught something on the left wall, a faded sign half covered by dust. Maintenance Hall Level C Secure Zone. A chill slid down her spine. This wasn't a storage area, this wasn't an accident, this was a controlled environment, built beneath the tower for reasons no county archive had ever acknowledged. She moved deeper, following the footprints. Eventually, the corridor opened into a larger chamber, a room so wide her flashlight barely reached the walls. The air shifted with her entrance, carrying the faint scent of insulated circuitry and old metal. Rows of consoles lined the walls, covered in sheets of dust. But not all of them. One console, near the far end of the room, was spotless. Her pulse quickened. She approached cautiously, each step measured. Layers of dust coated the surrounding floor, yet the ground beside the console had been disturbed. Subtle marks of boots, the faint scuff of a knee, the imprint of a case set down briefly. Someone had knelt here. And someone had wiped the console clean. Lena's heart pounded as she leaned closer. The machine itself was outdated by modern standards, 1980s-era hardware, all knobs and switches and glowing sockets. But the workmanship was meticulous. Government, grade, purpose, built. Her light traced the labels beneath the controls. Camera feed sector, 3 monitoring auxiliary power control, primary vault systems. The word hit her like a physical blow. She had suspected secrecy. She had suspected hidden infrastructure, but a vault she swallowed hard. This wasn't storage for tools or supplies. It was storage for something of value. She reached toward the console's main switch, hesitating as the cold metal brushed her fingertips. She expected resistance, a lock, a dead circuit, but the switch moved with eerie ease, smooth, almost welcoming. A low hum drifted through the chamber, then click. A single monitor on the wall flickered to life. Its screen glowed weakly with a sickly, green tint, struggling against decades of darkness. Horizontal lines rolled across it in haze, static, trying to fight through a signal that had been dormant for far too long. Lena stepped closer, holding her breath. An image slowly formed, a hallway, metal, reinforced underground, not the one she was standing in, but one deeper still. Her flashlight beam jittered slightly as she realized the truth. This facility had multiple levels. The camera feed crackled. Something shifted on screen. A door sliding open, the image too grainy to reveal what lay behind it. But Lena saw movement, a shadow, a flicker of a figure at the edge of the frame. Then the screen stuttered and dissolved into static. Her pulse hammered, sharp and cold. Someone was down here, not years ago, not decades ago, now. She forced herself away from the flickering monitor, scanning the rest of the chamber. On a nearby desk, half buried under dust, she spotted a thick binder, the kind she'd already seen upstairs. She brushed the dust away. Vault operations, level 4, strict clearance. Only her breath hitched. Level 4, not level C, deeper still. She opened the binder. Inside, pages were filled with typed instructions, flow charts, emergency procedures. Every line pointing to a facility designed to store extremely sensitive materials during national emergencies. Not tools, not documents, assets, controlled assets. One page repeated. Her fingers trembled as she turned the page. A final entry, typed, not handwritten, stared up at her. All personnel, do not enter level 4 without authorization. Final clearance suspended until further notice. Operation Fairway Shutdown is in effect. Lena's breath turned shallow. Operation Fairway Shutdown. The phrase was cold and sharp, as if carved from metal. She flipped to the next page, only to find it torn out. The page after that torn, entire sections removed. Someone had taken they didn't want found, and left only what couldn't incriminate them. Thunder boomed above, muffled but still powerful, as if the storm were trying to break through the concrete and drag her back upstairs. But Lena didn't look up. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Her light fell on something in the corner. A door, steel, heavily reinforced, marked with a number she recognized instantly, 419. Her pulse stuttered, the same number on the tag, the same number on the crate, the same number tied to everything she had uncovered so far. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a system, a structure of secrets built around that single designation. She stepped toward the door, feeling the cold radiate from its steel surface. Her fingertips brushed the numbers, and for a moment she felt as if the metal beneath them pulsed faintly, like a memory awakening. Somewhere behind this door lay the truth the tower had guarded, the truth the airport had been built to hide, the truth someone had shut down an entire facility to bury. But Lena didn't turn back, because she already knew the next step. She slid her hand into her pocket, and closed her fingers around the keycard she had found in the crate. It felt heavier now, as though it understood exactly where she was standing. As she lifted it slowly toward the door's lock panel, the hum beneath the floor deepened, vibrating through the walls, through her ribs, through the air itself. The door before her wasn't just a barrier. It was a threshold, and beyond it waited the next layer of a secret that had been hidden from the world for decades. Lena took a single breath, steady and cold, and raised the card toward the lock. Whatever lay behind this door, the airport had tried desperately to keep inside, and she was about to open it. The keycard hovered inches from the lock panel as the underground hum deepened into a low, resonant vibration, so steady it seemed to pulse through the air like a heartbeat. Lena hesitated, feeling the cold breath rising from the steel beneath her fingertips. The door marked 419 wasn't just a piece of metal. It felt like the skin of something dormant, something holding its last inhale, waiting for her next move. The panel beside the door flickered, just once, a single pale light, almost too faint to see. As if sensing the presence of the card, Lena pressed it forward. The moment the keycard touched the lock, a sharp electronic click snapped through the corridor. The panel lit up fully, green lines tracing across its surface like veins awakening for the first time in years. A digital tone chime, low, precise, mechanical, then a second tone, a deeper one, a confirmation. The air shifted. Every particle of dust hanging in the light trembled, suspended in a stillness that felt almost reverent. The reinforced door shuddered once, as though stirring from a long sleep. Then, with a slow metallic groan, it began to slide open, inch by inch, heavy locks releasing themselves from deep within the walls. Cold air rushed out, sharper than before, biting at her skin, carrying a faint scent of metal and something older. Something preserved. Lena held her breath. The room beyond revealed itself like a secret peeling back its first layer. Dark, wide, silent, a long, narrow chamber stretched ahead, illuminated only by her trembling flashlight beam. Rows of consoles lined the walls, sleek, angular forms that did not belong beneath a rural airport. Thick cables snaked across the floor, their insulation pristine despite the decades. Everything here was far too modern, far too deliberate to match the abandoned world above. At the far end of the chamber, a glassing, closed control booth overlooked the entire room like the eye of a sleeping giant. But something else drew her attention first. On a platform in the center of the room stood a tall, stainless, steel pillar, solid, seamless, perfect. At its base, a small digital panel blinked with soft blue light, bathing the floor in an eerie glow. It was humming, softly, steadily, alive, the same vibration she'd felt on the runway, the same faint pulse behind the keypad. All of it led here. This was the source. Her footsteps echoed as she entered the chamber. The door slid shut behind her with a final, echoing thud, sealing her inside with the quiet hum of ancient machinery. She didn't flinch, she didn't turn back. She felt the truth here, just beyond reach, tugging her forward. Her flashlight swept across the closest console. Dust coated the surface, but the equipment was intact. Monitors, switches, cables, ports she recognized from military documentation she'd seen years ago but never worked on directly. Then something caught her eye. A thin folder sat on the console, its cover immaculate compared to the abandoned surroundings. She brushed her thumb over the title. Level 4 Restricted Operations Log. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Level 4, the deeper chamber, the final space referenced in the binder upstairs. She opened it carefully. Inside were typed entries, brief, cold, clinical, vault assets received, verification pending, storage seals reinforced, no perimeter breach detected, authorization rerouted, Operation Fairway shutdown initiated. Personnel clearance revoked until further directive. Then, one chilling final line, Level 4 operations suspended. Assets remain in cold storage. Cold storage? Lena's breath trembled. The word took on new meaning in the frigid underground air. She lifted her light toward the stainless steel pillar again. The hum deepened, vibrating like a quiet warning, or a quiet welcome. At its base was a small access panel marked Core Seal Maintenance Override. Her throat tightened. Was this the vault, or simply the entrance to it? A sudden metallic bang echoed from somewhere deeper inside the chamber. Lena froze, muscles locking in place. Not the hum, not the machinery, not the storm overhead. Something had moved inside the facility. Her light flicked across the rows of equipment. Nothing shifted. No shadows crawled, no doors opened, but the sound lingered, vibrating faintly through the metal structures around her. The footprints she had followed suddenly felt closer than ever. She wasn't alone down here. Not now, maybe not ever. She moved slowly toward the control booth at the far end of the room. Its glass walls were fogged, but she could make out silhouettes of equipment inside machines that looked far too advanced for an airport, even a secret facility. When she gripped the booth handle, the door clicked open without resistance. The interior was shockingly clean, dust barely settling on the consoles inside. Someone had been here not long ago. Her flashlight slid across the panels until it caught one monitor left slightly ajar. A single sheet of paper was tucked underneath it. She eased it out carefully. A schematic, lines, circuits, access ports, and in the center, encased within layers of reinforced steel, a single chamber labeled Level 4 Primary Asset Vault. The vault existed. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, physically, and below her feet, somewhere deeper in the structure, sat whatever this facility had been built to hide since the late 80s. Her pulse accelerated as she ran her thumb across the corner of the schematic. Someone had scribbled something in the margin, a single name, written in haste, barely legible, Harwood. Lena's breath stopped. Her last name, her father's last name. The air felt thinner, colder, more alive. Her flashlight trembled. Had he worked here? Had he known about this place? Was this why everything in her life had quietly pointed her toward engineering, toward solving problems, toward machines? Or was it a warning left behind by someone who knew she would come? Before she could process the implications, a faint mechanical whir sounded behind her. She turned sharply. The stainless steel pillar's blue panel had changed. New text blinked across the surface. Override ready. Access code required. Lena stepped closer, heart pounding. This was it. The next seal, the next layer, the next truth waiting beneath the ground. She raised the keycard again, her hand trembling not from fear, but from the electric certainty that she was standing on the edge of discovering what the tower had been guarding all along. The hum deepened. The floor vibrated. The vault waited. And as Lena lifted the card toward the glowing panel, she realized the storm above hadn't been a danger at all. It had been a warning, because whatever lay inside Level 4, the world had not been ready for it then, and it might not be ready for it now. With a steady breath, Lena pressed the card forward, and the chamber lit up like an awakening giant. The chamber erupted in a blinding white pulse the instant Lena pressed the keycard against the glowing panel. An eruption of light so clean and violent it carved sharp silhouettes across the steel walls. She stumbled back, shielding her eyes as a low, rising whir shook the floor beneath her boots. It wasn't the chaotic rumble of old machinery struggling to wake. It was too smooth, too controlled, too precise, like a system merely resuming a job it had been forced to abandon mid-breath. The pillar at the center of the room split open along a seamless vertical line she hadn't noticed before. Cold vapor poured out from the widening crack, flooding the floor in a slow, silver mist that coiled around her ankles like drifting smoke. The air temperature dropped sharply. Her breath crystallized in front of her as the floor hummed with a deeper, more resonant vibration. Then the light cleared, and Lena saw what the pillar had been hiding. At its core, embedded within a cradle of reinforced steel, sat a device no bigger than a suitcase, rectangular, metallic, wrapped in dense protective shielding. Its surface was engraved with federal markings she recognized from engineering manuals but had never expected to see in person. U.S. Treasury Secure Asset Division, Cold Storage Unit, Fairway Classification, Level 4 Access. Only her heart slammed against her ribs. This wasn't airport technology. This wasn't aviation. This was federal containment. She moved closer, her breath shallow, her pulse ricocheting in her ears. The shielding on the device was unlike anything she'd seen. Layers of composite metal designed to withstand fire, explosion, electromagnetic pulse, even sub-zero freezing. Tiny rivets along the casing glimmered faintly beneath a layer of frost, and at its center, embedded like a jewel, was a biometric scanner ringed in faded yellow tape. Primary dock authorized hand, only her throat tightened. This was the first confirmation she'd found, official, undeniable, that the facility was not just secret. It was protected. Whatever was stored inside this unit, it wasn't meant to be touched, moved, or even known about, except by the highest levels of clearance. Lena reached toward the scanner, not to activate it, but to steady herself against the magnitude of what stood before her. Her fingers trembled above the frost-coated metal. The cold radiating from the device felt unnatural, controlled, engineered to preserve something the world couldn't afford to lose, or couldn't afford to find. But as she leaned in closer, her flashlight beam caught something carved into the metal beneath the frost. A small inscription, faint, hidden at the very bottom of the casing. Do not unlock unless final order is issued. The letters were jagged, uneven, not etched by machine, scratched in by hand. Lena's breath caught. Someone had overridden the official markings. Someone had left a warning. Before she could process the meaning, the machinery behind the pillar stirred again, gears shifting deeper within the floor. The lights above flickered. A sharp click echoed through the chamber, loud enough to jerk her attention upward. The screens in the control booth lit up one by one, flickering, struggling, then stabilizing. Old analog monitors awakened with a grainy hum, their screens filling with data feeds she couldn't immediately decipher. Rows of numbers, temperature readings, pressure levels, structural integrity charts, all of them pointing to something deeper below. A new line of text blinked across one screen. Level 4, station sealed. Last entry, February 12, 1991. Lena's pulse froze. The date the airport supposedly closed. The day everything stopped. The day the facility went dark. She swallowed hard, stepping toward the booth as the monitors continued spooling out data like a dying system confessing its final secrets. Another line of text appeared. Personnel redirected, operation fairway shut down. Evidence staged. Surface operations terminated. Assets left in place. Awaiting extraction order. Assets left in place. Lena's eyes drifted back to the cold storage unit. Was this one of them, or was it simply the mechanism guarding something bigger? Her gaze swept the chamber, searching, tracing every shadow, until it fell on a reinforced door on the far left wall. Unlike the others, this one bore no number, no label, only a single emblem she recognized instantly, a treasury seal, deeply engraved, perfectly preserved. This was it, the vault, not the small storage unit. Not the pillar, this door, the true heart of level 4. A quiet gasp escaped her lips as she walked toward it, each step heavier than the one before. The closer she got, the colder the air became, until her fingers stiffened and her breath flowed in white plumes. Frost coated the lower edges of the steel, spreading outward in delicate crystalline veins. Her flashlight landed on the locking mechanism, another biometric scanner, another access panel, another barrier built for someone with far more authority than she possessed. But beneath the panel, someone had left a second-hand, carved message, scratched into the metal with desperate, uneven strokes. "If you're reading this, don't trust the logs." Lena's breath wavered. Fear rippled beneath her ribs, cold and thin, like a wire pulling tight. Someone who worked down here had tried to warn whoever came next. Someone who knew this vault was more than a sealed room. Someone who scratched that message knowing they might never leave. She stepped back from the door as the underground hum deepened, resonating through the walls like a warning drum. Then a noise behind her, soft, barely audible, but unmistakable, a footstep. Lena spun around. Her light caught only empty space. Consoles, steel walls, drifting mist. But the sound came again, not the hum, not machinery, a real footstep in the room with her. Her heart thundered, beating so loudly she could feel it in her spine. Someone else was here, not just footprints in dust, a presence, alive, moving. Her voice caught in her throat. The storm above had raged with unnatural timing. The systems here had awakened too easily. And the moment she touched the keycard, someone, or something, had been triggered. She lifted her flashlight slowly, steadying the beam. The cold mist shifted, soundless, like breath. The next footstep came from behind one of the tall consoles. Closer, sharper, followed by the faintest scrape of metal on concrete. Lena's fingers tightened around the flashlight. Whoever had been walking these corridors was no longer ahead of her. They were here, in the chamber, in the cold, in the dark, watching her, and as the hum vibrated through the steel once more, slow, steady, growing louder, Lena realized something with chilling clarity. The vault wasn't the only thing that had been left behind. Someone had stayed. The silence that followed the last footstep was not empty. It pressed against Lena's skin like a cold hand, tightening across her ribs, urging her to stand still, too still. Even the humming machinery seemed to hesitate, lowering its pitch as if the entire chamber were holding its breath. Lena backed toward the center of the room, her light trembling across the frost-covered metal. The mist curling around her ankles thickened, moving strangely against the air currents, as though disturbed by something she could not see. Then movement. A shadow flickered across the far wall, quick, sharp, too defined to be a trick of the light. Lena swung her flashlight toward it. Nothing, but the mist parted, and a faint warmth lingered where something had just passed through the cold. Her pulse slammed against her throat. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to run to, no exits except the sealed door behind her and the reinforced vault ahead. The storm outside had driven her underground, but the storm wasn't what she needed to fear now. She forced her breath to steady. "Hello," she whispered, her voice cracking against the cold metal. No answer, only the hum, and the sound of something shifting, barely audible, somewhere between the consoles. A soft scrape, a slow inhale, the subtle displacement of air. Someone was hiding, or waiting, or watching. She scanned the room, flashlight trembling as she swept past the tall pillar. The cold storage unit sat silently inside its cradle, but its frost-covered surface seemed to pulse faintly with every breath she took, like a heartbeat syncing with her own. The tiny screen on the unit blinked again. Override pending authorized user required. Her stomach tightened. Authorized user. Whoever was down here might be that user, or worse. They might be trying to stop her from becoming one. Another sound, closer, a faint metallic tap, deliberate, coming from behind the nearest console. Lena kept her beam low, slow, sweeping across the floor. The mist swirled, revealing the faint outline of a boot print that had not been there a moment ago, fresh, close, belonging to someone who was now only a few steps away. Her breath caught painfully. Who's there? Stronger this time, sharper. The answer came not in words, but in motion. A figure stepped out from behind the console, lowly, as if testing the air, a silhouette solidifying from shadow, broad shoulders, heavy boots, gloved hands, clothing that did not match the dust or age of the facility. Dark, insulated, tactical. Lena's heart jolted. He wasn't a relic from the past. He was modern. Prepared, equipped. He had known about this place. He had come down here willingly, and he was staring at her. Her flashlight lifted instinctively, but the beam trembled when it found his face. Pale in the cold, jaw tense, eyes hollowed with exhaustion. Or something darker. He looked like someone who had been underground far too long. He raised a hand slightly, not in greeting, but in warning. "Don't touch that," he said, voice hoarse, strained, cracking like it hadn't been used in days. Or years. The words echoed through the chamber with heavy weight. He pointed toward the cold storage unit behind her. "Whatever you do," he rasped, "don't activate the vault." Lena's throat dried. "How did you? Who are you?" she whispered. The man stepped closer. The light caught the edges of his gear. Military, grade fabric, reinforced plates, a faded emblem on his sleeve worn nearly to nothing. He looked like someone from a project long stripped from records, a ghost of a classified mission that had never ended. He swallowed hard, eyes darting around the chamber as if expecting something else to emerge from the shadows. "I was assigned here," he said, "a long time ago, longer than anyone on the surface remembers." He dragged a shaking hand through his hair. "But they sealed level 4 after the shutdown. They left me here with the asset." Left him. The word hit Lena like ice. "You mean," she whispered, unable to finish the sentence. "Yes." His voice cracked. "They abandoned the facility, but the vault, it wasn't empty. It never was." The hum beneath the floor vibrated again, deeper now, more insistent, as though reacting to the conversation. The lights above flickered. Frost peeled from the vault door in fragile flakes. The man took another step forward. They didn't expect anyone to find this place again. He whispered, "Not until extraction, not until the order came." His eyes locked onto hers. No one was supposed to activate anything, especially not without clearance. Lena's breath hitched as the realization tightened around her chest. This wasn't just a vault. This was an operation frozen in time. A mission suspended mid-command. A secret buried alive beneath an entire airport. And the man standing in front of her alive, exhausted, hollow-eyed, was the last witness. She stepped back instinctively, her shoulder brushing against the cold pillar. A sharp beep echoed behind her. The cold storage unit's panel glowed again. "Identity lock pending, stand by." The man's expression twisted with panic. "No," he hissed, rushing forward. "Don't let it scan you. Don't even be near it." Lena stumbled away as he reached the pillar, his gloved hands slamming against the panel in desperation. But the machine did not respond to him. The scanner glowed brighter, reaching into the mist with a flickering pulse. It was searching, scanning, choosing. Lena's pulse roared in her ears. The man turned to her, breath ragged, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something deeper recognition. "What did you bring in with you?" he asked quietly. "What made it wake up?" Lena's mind raced the keycard, the logs, the tower door, the name scratched in the vault's frame. Harwood, her father's last name. She swallowed hard. "I don't know." But the man's gaze said otherwise. Before he could speak again, the machine beeped sharply. Biometric match detected access initialized. Lena froze. The man froze. The room fell impossibly still. Then the panel lit with a final cold line of text. Harwood lineage confirmed. The hum surged beneath the floor. The vault door groaned, the air dropped further, becoming painfully cold. The man staggered backward, shaking his head in horror. No, not now, not her. He reached for her arm, voice trembling. You have to listen to me. The vault doesn't open for strangers. It opens for blood. And if it's opening for you. Before he could finish, a thunderous metallic boom exploded through the chamber as the reinforced vault door shuddered violently, unlocking, unsealing, awakening, and Lena realized with chilling clarity whatever her father had been part of, whatever Operation Fairway had been designed to protect, whatever had been locked away in Level 4 since 1991, was calling for her. The vault door buckled inward with a deep, metallic groan that rolled through the chamber like the opening breath of something enormous. Lena staggered back as frost shattered off the steel in crystalline flakes, scattering like broken diamonds across the concrete floor. The cold hit her next, an arctic wave surging from the widening seam, so sharp it stabbed straight through her clothes and seized her lungs. The man beside her flinched, his jaw locking tight as he braced himself against a console. It's responding to you, he whispered, voice raw with dread. It shouldn't be responding to anyone. Lena's pulse hammered, each thud echoing through her chest like a drum too close to the skin. The vault door continued sliding open, inch by heavy inch, as pressurized air hissed from the narrowing gap, air that had not tasted the world above since the final shutdown 34 years ago. A low, rhythmic thrum began beneath the floor. Different from the hum before, deeper, more deliberate, as if some deeper system, something far below this chamber, was waking after decades of silence. Lena's flashlight beam trembled across the widening darkness inside the vault. At first she saw nothing, only black, pure and absolute. But as the door peeled back further, she saw the faintest glimmer, light reflecting off metal, rows of metal, crates, tall, reinforced, sealed with official embossments and faded federal markings. Her breath caught. They stood in silent formation like soldiers waiting for inspection, stacked precisely from floor to ceiling, each with identical stenciling. U.S. Treasury Secure Asset Vault Category, a restricted do not unseal without final order. The man stepped closer, fear and awe tangling in his expression. They never extracted it, he whispered. All these years, they never came back. Lena couldn't speak. Her throat felt tight, as if the air inside the vault were too heavy to breathe. She stepped closer, her flashlight trembling as the beam skimmed across the smooth surfaces of the crates. Then she saw it. One crate, just one, sat open. Its lid leaned crookedly to the side, frost clinging to its edges like white moss. Inside, rows of tightly wrapped bundles sat neatly, rectangular, paper-banded, pristine. The breath left her lungs in a single, weak gasp. Cash, stacks upon stacks of mint, condition U.S. currency, uncirculated, untouched. She counted them quickly in her mind, each bundle sealed, each brick crisp, each row packed with flawless precision. Millions, dozens of millions, hundreds. Her words slipped out barely as a whisper. This is the missing Federal Reserve shipment. The man didn't react with shock. He reacted with something closer to despair. This wasn't supposed to stay here, he said. It was temporary, a safeguard, a precaution in case the system collapsed. It was meant to be retrieved, but it wasn't. Lena murmured, why not? He didn't answer. Or maybe he couldn't. The deeper hum beneath the floor grew louder, vibrating through her boots with a slow, steady rhythm, like a mechanical heartbeat rising to consciousness for the first time in decades. Lena took a cautious step inside the vault. The air changed instantly, colder, still, so thick with silence it felt like gravity doubling. Her light swept across a long metal table near the back wall, its surface covered with papers that had long since curled from cold and age. She approached slowly, brushing frost away with the back of her sleeve. Documents, blueprints, sealed notes stamped classified, and a small, taped envelope with the name Harwood written across the front. Lena's blood turned to ice. Her hand hovered above the envelope, trembling. Her father, her family, her name, all tied to a vault buried under a forgotten airfield. The man took a step toward her. "Don't touch that," he said quietly. But Lena's fingers were already closing around the paper. It crackled beneath her grip, fragile, preserved by cold but delicate enough to crumble if handled wrong. She lifted it slowly, feeling the weight of the entire facility settle onto her shoulders. The hum again, louder, stronger, the lights above flickered, the air beneath the floor groaned with pressure. Something massive shifted in the depths. The man looked around in sudden alarm. "No, no, no," he muttered, stepping away from the pillar as if afraid of what might come next. "The system is reawakening. It's recognizing a clearance trigger." Lena turned toward him. "From me," he swallowed hard. "Yes, from you, and from whatever you just touched. The envelope, the vault. Her father's name, everything connected in ways she wasn't ready to comprehend." A sudden mechanical jolt shuddered the floor, nearly knocking her off balance. The vault lights flickered violently, casting long, warped shadows that stretched across the sealed crates like skeletal fingers clawing for release. The man steadied himself against the wall. "This facility was never meant to activate again," he said. "If it's waking, if it's recognizing blood, then whatever they hid in level 4 wasn't just money." The hum grew into a growl. Then a hollow, thunderous clunk echoed from beneath the vault floor. A new mechanism engaging. A new lock releasing. A deeper door opening. Lena felt her lungs seize. "What's happening?" she whispered. The man's eyes darkened with grim recognition. "This vault, it has 2 layers," he said softly.